Welcome to Cut the Check podcast with Craft Farmer, where we bring you the best guests and the most entertainment.
I mean, you still, like when you're talking amongst people, you could tell there's just really hope that, this year, I know lots of cultivators who are unplugging their whole fucking ranches.
Yeah.
Lots in Oregon, big fucking ranches are all going offline.
Yeah.
Do you see this recovering? And if so, how does that happen?
I mean, if I'm just thinking about it from a fear place, no, I don't.
It's too late. All these other states are putting out too much product
that's
now.
the difference, is that the last time that we had this kind of a glut was right before COVID, but Oklahoma really hadn't come online. Michigan,
Oklahoma slapped this year.
Yeah. So, and Oklahoma hadn't come online yet. Michigan was cruising, but it was still kind of insulated in that region. Maine's another one that was really getting going, but it was still kind of in that region. And that's the big difference. So I'm optimistic. There's a part of me that's optimistic, but at the same time, like, unless you're growing runts, you can't sell anything.
When do you think that changes? Like how long can a market just desire this one, this candy or gas?
I don't
flower?
know.
Like that's all that they're asking for is runts.
Yeah, well,
like at what point does that get burned out?
I don't know. This phenomenon is really, really weird because pre-COVID, it was about runts. Remember, like runts had just kind of hit, and then it had like a moment. And then it got played out. And then I know like people that were making runts crosses, and everyone's like, dude, that shit's done. Why are you wasting your time, right? And those guys really were the ones that were like, no, it's going to come back, right? And I've talked to some of these breeders, shout out Always Be Flowering. He's a homie, fucking great dude.
He does all kinds of shit.
Grow low key. Those guys, they fucking make killer gear. But he's like, no, I'm going to put all these new runts crosses out. He got a little hate. He got shitted on a little bit. And now it's like, homie was right. Like everything still is runts. And I think that
but it's cool, like low key, speaking of him, his shit isn't. His shit is everything that he's created himself and using stuff that was created for him.
Yeah.
And when we did our little thing together and I was picking his brain and we're hanging out and stuff, he's like, every single time I have a cycle, I'm always hunting seeds all the way around the room. He's got plants all the way around his room. He hand waters, every night. And he's like, I'm hunting non-stop, every run, new hunts. Because he said, for me, trying to stay where I'm at and demand these extremely high prices, I have to have a new strain every fucking cycle or they're not going to,
this is the phenomena that I'm seeing too, is that like, I've seen a lot of new gear. And if it looks, and old gear, right? Like, there's a lot of Sunset Sherb that's being sold as runs now, right? Or they put a little,
But it doesn't smell anything like it.
But it doesn't matter. It's just this weird thing. It's like almost like cola, right? Like Pepsi Cola, Coca-Cola. And it's just weird that, I agree with you on that. But in some of these different markets, they don't really know, right? So if it just has the look, if it's got that little bit of that purple, a little bit of that structure, people will buy into it. And that's what I see happening to some extent. And then now you've got like all these new, I lost my train of thought, but basically I have never seen a phenomenon like this, except maybe like OG, right? Like there was a time where everyone just wanted OG.
For a long time.
I remember going to the dispensary, hey bro, you got OG, bro? You got OG? We only want to buy OG. It's like
I do have I know people who are like, man, we need A+ OG. Like they want it, they're looking for it. So that makes me kind of wonder, like, okay, maybe the OG's starting to come back a little bit, which would be great.
I had someone ask for Super Silver Haze and Trainwreck the other day, and
awesome.
Blue Dream, and I was like, I like Super Silver Haze, Trainwreck, Blue Dream, but at least I'm hearing that.
Yeah.
Right.
Nobody, in order to have that around, you got to be like growing it.
Who's got the cut? Yeah,
someone's growing it right now.
Someone's been looking at that Trainwreck cut for the last like 12 years, just going one day.
Fucking nuts.
But
there are people still, which is crazy, are eating really well right now. eating fat.
They're eating well and they're growing runts in Gelato 41. You know,
And a lot of Sherb crosses, like
a lot of Sherb crosses. Yeah,
the Sherb crosses reign fucking supreme right now.
I
Like if
know.
you think about all the Sherb crosses,
RS11.
a lot of
Yeah.
low key stuff all
Yeah.
has a Sherb cross that made something, and then it's hard
Atomic
to say.
Collider is a Sherb cross.
It's
Yeah.
hard to say
Yeah.
right now. Like when you just think of it, like what's the goat? What's the goat genetic?
It's
like
Sunset
what's done the
Sherber
most?
right now. Yeah.
I mean, think about just the root system, watching the Sherb at the top and
Yeah.
everything it's made and everything it's crossed with. And people are still going back to the original
Yeah.
and making their crosses with lineage that they've
Yeah.
made.
Yeah.
Dude, I got to show you some stuff that shout out to Uncle Dad Vibes. Do you
Yeah.
know Ian
No.
from Finest?
No, I don't know Ian. I've known a few other people from
So
Finest.
Ian, super cool dude.
Yeah.
He's head of cultivation for Finest and some of their other projects, but he is just he's so like his world revolves around terps
Yeah.
and like creating. He could give a fuck less about a THC test or anything like that. His entire everything is about the terpene and the flavor and stuff like that. And he
Yeah.
just recently gave me some stuff that he's made. Bro, I think it could be the most amazing smelling weed I've ever
Really?
smelled in my life. He's got this one, it's called Purple Pineapple Dolomite.
Okay.
And like day 19, completely frosted over. Completely frosted over.
Wow.
And I don't want to botch the cross of it, but it's got like, you know, a lot of the stuff they do.
Do you have any?
I'll take you over there growing
All
it
right,
right
all
now.
right,
I think
all
I'm
right, cool.
day 25 in the
Okay, I
garden.
wanna see it.
We'll go look
Yeah.
at it. Just crazy. Strawberry Moon Man.
What is it test at?
We're going to find out. But it's
right.
the most frostiest looking plant I've ever grown in my life.
So check this out. Like
And at an early age, like clone,
Yeah.
reeking. Like the plant itself just puts out a lot of smell, a lot of nose.
So this is interesting. On the THC thing, right? Because we all know what's going on with Ghost Distro. We don't have to talk about it.
What?
Like, you know, you got distro companies that
Yes.
have a license, and then
I mean, it's the biggest thing happening in California right now.
It
has
is.
to. I
you got people going on. Do you see that Vice special?
I think it could possibly trump the amount of money going into the legal everything as much as more is going out. I think than money's being made.
I think that it's at least half, and it could be way more.
Yeah.
And
But check this out. It even
Yeah.
gets worse. Not saying any fucking names, but I recently visited a facility. Came in, we're looking at work and stuff for the
Yeah.
distro. And the first thing the guy says, he's like, dude, if you see anything here you want, it's $25 and you can pick it up in the back door.
yeah,
Without even like, I mean, just coming out with that, just saying it as we arrived. Never worked there, never been
that's
there.
what I'm trying to say. Like that.
Isn't that like getting carded for cigarettes? Like,
Dude.
you're gonna ask your customer, hey kid, do you
don't-
want a pack of cigarettes?
I don't understand what's going on because, you know, you and I both come from, we'll just call it the Prop 215 days, right? Where
Pirate life.
Pirate Life. Yeah, we'll say it like that. And I'm watching that Vice special, and there's this guy on there, no face covering, no blurriness, and he's just talking about his Ghost Distro and everything that he's doing with it. And I'm just like, why the fuck would you be on camera saying that right now? Like, you know, the word is brazen, right? And like you said, like it's just all out there. And I don't know. Does that mean that it's just cool to just sell weed outside of the system right now and talk about it with everybody?
Apparently, there's no fear because nobody's.
There's no fear.
Nobody's in what? Do you know what starts this kind of shit? When nobody's ever been reprimanded, what do you see happen? Look at our lives. Look at the last 10 years. We wouldn't greet each other in the hydro store. We wouldn't talk about anything because
Yeah.
our friends were getting fucking raided every day.
All the time.
Every day in the Press Democrat, someone's getting raided. So you don't even want to go into the hydro store. You're going into towns that
Yeah.
you don't live in.
Totally.
So
100%.
look at what they're getting away with.
Yeah.
Let's say you have a massive.
Dude, they're moving fucking shipping container. They're moving tractor trailers of product. There's like a whole shipping system now. And it's just kind of like you don't have to look that far to see what's going on. And I don't understand.
So I don't think it's going to change until the
Yeah.
state actually comes out and does something to someone and starts doing it more often.
I don't think that they will, because I think that everything is just at the point where it's so corrupt. So the thing that I feel like, I get it. Like someone said to me the other day, there's no such thing as a black market or a white market. There's just the cannabis market. And I was like, I couldn't agree more. Meaning that like, it's just, there's weed being sold everywhere. You know what I mean? Like the people on the white market are doing almost like, a lot of people in the white market are doing almost everything as illegal as the black market. Or you've got these shady ass fucking investor motherfuckers that are behind the company that are doing illegal shit, cooking the books
Right.
and doing all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's just like, you don't have to throw a stone until you run into something that's worse than like the supposed crime of
Right.
breaking prohibition, right?
Right.
Like if you think about, I think, you know, and maybe I'm just because I'm getting old now, I got fucking white in my beard. You're getting some too. And
I had my wife order Just for Men gel. Let me give it a try.
put it on your eyebrows too. No, but I think it was almost cleaner back then when it was, you go to the dispensary, you get paid cash, and it was this, and it was like this nonprofit collective thing. There was something cleaner about it. Now it's this weird bubble mentality, and all this shit's going on. So I don't know if the other shoe's gonna drop, because so many people in the system are corrupt and getting paid from it too. You know, like when we were dealing with all
So
the.
you're saying now all the people in the CDFA, mad corruption.
I think they're all fucking corrupt, and I don't think it'll ever change at this point. And I think that's just the truth.
What do they gain? What are they getting from it?
I don't know if it's I look. Let me be clear. I don't think everyone's corrupt. This is the tragedy of it. I think there are people that are trying to create a regulated system where people can get tested, safe, clean flower. I think there are people that need cannabis for beyond just recreational use, right? And even if you're using flower recreationally, that's the biggest problem with the black market activity going on right now. People have no idea what they're consuming, right? And women are smoking this shit when they're pregnant, right? And it could have all kinds of chemistry on it. And that could be getting, moving through the fetal tissue and affecting the fucking way that the child's brain develops. All that shit's fucking real,
Right.
I was talking to a microbiologist about this last week. And that's the shit that isn't being talked about. So like the safety aspect of it is the best part of legalization, even though right now our systems of testing are flawed, right? People pay off to get tests, or they dust their shit in Keef. And
Yep.
there's all these ways of jimmying the system. And what it is too, is we're also in a time right now where we're at like, that feels like it's the most chaotic. We got this divide, you say something 20 years ago and now it gets brought back up.
Right.
And fucking, you're gonna kill you for it, and all this kinds of shit. And it's just the craziest time, and that chaos allows the most corruption, right? In my opinion, right? That's my 2 cents on it. So I think when we look at what's going on through all this fucking pandemic shit, and all the politicians doing, saying one thing, saying the other, I think it's the easiest. It's been the most clarity on how duplicitous anyone that's in power is at, right? So I don't know if it's the people on the bottom of the totem pole for the CDFA. And I've met a lot of regulators. And they just have no education on what they're looking for. They don't know they're trying to do the good thing. But then, I've had like meetings with the same groups of regulators. And like the first time it was really great and they were trying to do everything by the book. And then the fifth time on the fifth inspection, they were just over it. They're like, it's a lost fucking cause. Like I could see it in their look, like there was lack of purpose. And what they were even, I could tell they were just like
Their enforcement.
They were in an infinite shrug. You know what I mean? It's just like,
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know, and then because even people that get slapped on the wrist or whatever like that, they're just back to doing what they were doing. It's just this whole weird cycle. So that's the point I'm making, is that like, buyer beware, number one, probably better if you know the person growing your weed and you have a relationship with them. And you trust that they have standards, right? And that if they get something tested for you, you know that they're going to back it up. And then don't expect that, anything is going to get cleaned up anytime soon, because there's too much money involved. There's too much greed.
Right.
And the whole paradigm that we're in is just fucking broken.
Right.
And I'm cynical, but like and then it's all just about like who's going to sell their company for the highest value as quickly as possible. And that has nothing to do with ending prohibition. Like the whole point of ending prohibition Like and the whole fact of like, we're gonna let you grow weed. It's gonna be a privilege for you to grow weed, motherfucker. This shit was taken away. It wasn't a privilege before to grow weed. Anybody could grow hemp or cannabis. It was just a part about being a human. Now it's a privilege to grow weed and you have to go through all this shit. That's just some weird gatekeeper bullshit that gets put onto it to create a system to funnel the revenue into all these different corrupt aspects of government, and business and everything else. And then meanwhile, you got these farmers like you're talking about that bought into Prop 64. Like all of Humboldt. Remember the HCGA?
Did they buy into it? Like they were wanting it?
A lot of people bought into it because they wanted this, right? And it was coming from an idealism, a little bit of that hippie mentality that like, this is going to help change the world for the better, get rid of the prohibition of this plant. People were out there talking about it, and I think a lot of the NorCal and Humboldt area that were generational farmers that were optimistic and idealistic thought that kind of activism, right? Activism, they were... Like I know a lot of weed activists, and this is what they've been pushing for. But to then see it all get kind of, soiled along the way, right, and turn into what it is now, and then, I could see like either a lot of those people have turned off their grow and moving on other things, and I've gone, and this has been going on for the last 5 years now, where I've seen that despondent look in these growers' eyes that supported their families for years growing weed. And then like, they got Fish and Game showing up. They got all these people, they're getting taxed for all this nonsense. Not any other farm growing any other crop gets looked at this way. And meanwhile, you have the local municipalities making obscene amounts of money off of taxes. Like Central Valley is fucking insane. And they've reduced it and they play around with it. And meanwhile, you got these real estate guys that came in. I met with all these guys. We go to Central Valley when Salinas was turning everything on. I met with all these fucking used car salesmen. And literally, these guys were used car salesmen, some of them, that had moved into real estate because they knew people that had these pieces of land. And then they were brokering like the cut flower greenhouses and things that were all dilapidated.
Tomatoes, all of it.
Well, yeah, mostly cut flowers. And then when NAFTA happened, all the cut flower industry moved down to South America and it killed the Salinas Valley. So those farmers that were like, holy shit, I can make $1 a square foot. Like they're like ag land, you can lease a fucking acre of ag land for $2,500 to $3,500. And if you've got some ramshackle hoop house on it, that isn't adding a lot of value onto your lease. And that's what all of these things were. They were charging people $1 a square foot. Right? So you think that's insane if you think about it. And then the market starts to depreciate and there's still, the real estate people and the owners are still keeping that lease. And what's happening is all these things are destroying these smaller markets that could emerge. And then you've got people that have figured it out and just like, I'm going to play both sides and I'm going to take as much market share as I can. And then I'm going to build things. I'm going to sell it to the Cure Leaf. I'm going to sell it to the True Leaf, right? And then I'll figure out a way of continuing to do what I'm doing. And I'll get True Leaf and Cure Leaf probably involved in somehow. I'm speculating. I'm not saying that. But there's no way to keep your hands clean in this is what I'm, what it is. And for us that have come from, the pirate life, we're like, okay, like we get it. But there's degrees in that.
None of this stuff is like surprising me though.
No.
Because everybody's like, oh, kind of like outrageous. And they're like, this taxes and getting these licenses and this is a pain in the ass. And it's like, that's been our whole entire life. Like, I don't ever expect something to ever go smooth for us.
It never has.
But it's almost as if our peers, not all of them, but it's like they thought there was going to be something different. Like, they're like, oh my God, like, I can't believe we have to do this. Really? Like,
yeah,
it's kind of obvious. Like, we've had to do this for fucking everything we've done.
Well, and we have to do the same thing, and now we have to learn how to run a business. And that's the disadvantage of people that have been living that life is there's all all those other types of things like business management, human resources. If you have a big farm, paying taxes, right? If you weren't paying your taxes, and the smarter people were paying taxes the whole time, right?
Right.
So all of that factored into it. Plus, like most people that went into the Prop 215 era, they did that because they didn't do so great working in the real world, right? Like it was too much. And being in a garden and just having the simplicity of being able to grow something, trim it, and sell it, that was a life that they could be abundant in. And now it's going back into something where there's a lot of different roads. You have to understand a lot of different pathways to be able to get that money, right? And that's really challenging. And then so now, like what you're doing, for instance, like both of us went into that world. We saw what it was, like as far as being a grower and a licensed grow. We experienced the joy and the misery of it, right? And then we took all that experience, and now what I see both of us is doing is really helping small home growers get a leg up and small growers get going, right? And still dabbling with the mid-sized to larger sized farms where we've identified that there are people that are good people. I'm not saying that everyone's bad, right? I mean, God bless everyone that's trying to like do this on their own, raise some money, and they really want to grow good weed and create a good business. Like those are the people like, give me a call, give Lance a call. Like we fucking got your back. Like we want you to win because it's just turned, or because both you and I share the same, we connect because we both share the same love of the garden. Both of us can geek out on a fucking rad garden. And that's like our meeting point. And then all these other relationships came from that. So like if either other people that want to have a business where they want to geek out on a rad garden, having quality products, like what about that? Like, does anybody want to have a fucking quality product?
I think everybody wants to.
But at some point they were like,
Or there's just that, I mean, I think it's like other trades where there's that separation from really, really high quality to, an average.
Yeah, but average is the price of average is dropping, right? Because there's so much average.
You can't sell average.
You can't sell average unless you're in a state that has a slightly less educated market on what quality is, or there's limited access. There was a lot of below average weed in Pennsylvania.
I bet.
Dude, I was like, this is the bar?
I mean, I still think there's more below average weed than better in California.
Oh my God, so much.
Even.
Yeah, no, 100%.
In every state.
But because there's so much of it grown, you're going to have a higher amount. So let's say 5% of it's good, right? That 5% of 1 million pounds is a lot different than 5% of 100,000 pounds. Like you're gonna run into more. There's a more higher volume of quality just based off of the scale of it all.
And then it's getting the shelf space. Like how the fuck do you get the shelf space? How do you get a store to move product out of the way that they already have on their shelf to put you on their shelf? And then once you get on the shelf, selling enough of what's on the shelf so you're not just getting backed up and you don't have someone buying from you anymore. There's so many logistics involved. Yeah. And you see this stuff in the supermarket thing where like oblivious to me until I seen it on like Shark Tank and they're talking about buying the shelf and, grow stores might do it too. Some of the big grow stores, like how do you get some of the products in the front on the other shelves that you see the most when you walk in door? Do they pay for that real estate? Is that like an advertisement cost? Just there's so much flour being produced and then you have to go somehow get it on the shelf somewhere, get someone to buy it from you. And most of the times we don't have any kind of sales representatives. So we have to leave the garden to try to sell our flour to stores. That's
I know.
Incredibly challenging.
And then there's not the same, like with the taxes when all the costs that go into it that are outside of just the actual operation of the garden, right? Like then paying somebody, hiring somebody to do all that, and they're going to expect fucking 6 figures a year, 80 to 100K a year, and then at the end of the day, you look at it and you're like, damn, I'm not making any fucking money.
It's very hard to also swallow that pill when you've been doing it like your whole life.
Oh my God.
And all of a sudden something's changed that you never saw coming, you were never prepared for like this. When I like when they talk about legacy growers and I hear that word, I always go back to like Humboldt and like outdoor. Yeah. Like even though I'm a legacy grower, like I think for some reason I always think way far north, outdoor. Yeah. And I think I worry for them the most because everybody I talk to and stuff, like even though sun-grown's great flower and amazing, nobody really wants to smoke that.
No, and and
I don't mean that in any disrespect, but every single person I talk to, and nobody wants to smoke outdoor for some reason.
It's the.
And I can't say everybody, but
no,
these people running the streets and runts.
majority,
And, you know,
majority of people want like caked out, rock hard, indoor looking flower, right? That has a little candy gas, and you know you could throw it at someone's forehead and it's gonna, boop, you know, that's kind of like what I see.
there's no compression to
Yeah,
it
there's
when
no
you touch it.
compression to it, and I'm like, have you tried this? It's got like some resin in it, you know. They're like, oh, that's pretty good, but still, it's what's you know, it's what's become popular. You know, it's a consumer behavior trend, and outdoor is not as it's not as I mean, it's still, there's a lot of really pretty and good looking outdoor, but it doesn't have the same look. And you know, the consumer subjectively doesn't think that that looks as good, right? And I know some outdoor people are gonna be like, no way, bro. But you know, it's like that's
sure.
the perspective. Like, and unfortunately, like anything, right? Like any other product now, we move to a point where people base what they want to buy on the way it looks, you know, first. Like that's the first thing. And if I go to a dispensary, which is rare, I will go look at the flower and I will try and find something that I think looks good, right? And that's, you know.
And also with the buyers for the clubs, they don't want to buy things that aren't selling. You know, I remember
can't.
watching this stuff at Mercy and seeing what, you know, they're talking about what moves. Oh, go get this. Like they're not on the hunt to go buy outdoor, even with all the hundreds of customers they're getting a day. And that has to tell you something.
And I have had calls with some really great outdoor growers who were still believing in the fact that they thought they were going to be able to sell their product at a profit this year. And I was just like, dude, if you're getting offered $350, $400, take it all right now.
Just get rid of it and move on to the next one.
Get rid of it and move on and figure out a new strategy. No, I can't do this. I think this is worth $800 to $1,200. This is what I was getting before. I'm like, that I don't think is ever coming back.
Yeah.
I don't think, and especially, I know a lot of people blew out the autoflowers, and there's a lot of boo-boo autoflower seeds that went out there, but like I've seen really good autoflower outdoor as well. There are some breeders that are producing really good autoflower seeds, and I know a few, and I've rocked it, and I've seen some shockingly good autoflower. It's so much easier, right? So like the outdoor scale is going to have the highest amount of price compression because you're going to be able to farm that with big ag principles, and it's not going to be like, you know, 200, 300 gallon smart pots, fabric pots, you know, with all the organics in it. It's just, you know, there'd be maybe a niche market for that. But I think all of the weed at some point is going to be like indoor or greenhouse that's pretty much indoor. You know, it's like sunlight assist.
Right.
You get a little sunlight to help you out, but like you're still controlled environment.
Majority of the time it's the lights.
And everything is being crop steered and everything's got the lights on it and the whole fucking thing, you know. And that's just the future. And you know, I've talked to many outdoor growers that were still convinced that people would acknowledge the value in their product, and then, you know, I talked to them a couple months later. They don't even bring it up. I just hear it, like they don't even want to talk about what happened. Like they're still sitting on the product, and they're just like, I got to figure out something to do, you know. And I get it, you know. Like, so I think this is probably as bad as it was in 2018, 2019 before pandemic thing happened as far as pricing. But we're like we're saying, we're looking at all these other states that are turning it on, and we're looking at how much is going to get flooded into markets that, you know, however this market would feed, right? Like I know you and I have never been feeding any of those markets, but like we could be selling to a distro, and then that distro is going to be selling it somewhere outside of that world, right?
Right.
So we don't know. That's out of our control, right? Like, but that's the thing. It's like I don't know where it goes. So it's going to be about genetics. But if people only, that's the other thought. Like I think it's going to be about really good genetics, marketing. It's
and not even just really good genetics. If you got really good genetics, you still need to
market it.
Fucking make sure everybody finds it and knows about it somehow.
Knows about it, yeah. So it's going to be about diversifying, like, you know, placing that genetic and product into a bunch of different forms of media, and then people are going to want to have to, you know, really have a desire for it, and it's got to be really good. And it's, even at the end of the day, someone can still come to you and say, dude, I got this the other day. That's some fire. That's really good. Do you have any runts?
Right. Back to the candy terps.
Yeah, back to the candy terps. So, You know, and in 6 months it could change, but it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, I'm hopeful that it will come back. Nothing really ever ever just goes to the bottom and hits the floor and stays there. Like the world is always in flux. Like everything is always going up and down. And if we lose, let's say worst case scenario, we lose 90% of the farmers in California, right? Which is some estimates that I've seen that 90% of the licenses aren't going to turn on. I read that report today.
That have started or
No,
or that are permit or like
they're
in
permitted farms.
that program they have now that they're about to abolish.
Yeah.
The temporary thing or whatever.
Yeah, that and then also just people that can't afford
To move forward.
that it's around 90% of the licenses. Well, then we're going to have a huge drought. And I honestly think that I'd probably say that fucking probably at least half the weed that the country's smoking is coming from California.
Still?
And not anymore, but it was probably, right?
Yeah.
And who knows where it goes from there? I don't know. But then you think about, like, I don't think there's a ton of amazing growers in Oklahoma. You know, I mean, that's not what I'm hearing. You know, and I know I feel like there's a stronger grow community in Michigan and in Maine, and then there are some good growers in Oklahoma, but really the guys that like went into Oklahoma that were mediocre couldn't make it in California and got in early, those motherfuckers won.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like they came in, but they're going to restrict the amount of licensing now on that. So everything's going to get tightened up over there. So that's going to have an impact. So we don't know what all these other factors are going to play out, but you know, I'm thinking that if 90% of these licenses, or let's say it's 50% of the licenses, or 30% of the licenses don't turn on, right? And they pass that amendment, which some people don't think they will, where there's maybe like a bigger threat or a bigger risk if people are playing outside of the lines. I think that, yeah, we could see prices go back up real fucking quick, especially on good product, you know, because there's a lot of these guys that have figured out that have scale that maybe like 10% of their actual canopy is licensed, 90% of it isn't, and they're growing pretty good weed now at scale. Whereas before it wasn't that way. Like
Right.
you see like I would just see a lot of really poorly grown indoor, and now people like you have been fucking selling. You and Alex and Josh and Ramsey have been selling these guys all this technology to help them grow better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for
like
sure.
They've been paying attention, you know? And so now things that used to be like $500 indoor packs, $600 indoor packs, now they're $1,000, $1,200, but they're competing with things that would normally go for $2,500.
Right.
And I'm seeing them and I'm like, oh shit. You know, I mean, that's the advantage of technology. And that's the advantage of having people come in that know what they're doing, but have figured out how to create technology and practices to help scale it. So like for us, like our future might just be in supporting the development and the innovation of that, because that's what we've been doing all along for ourselves and sharing that and then creating other forms of media. But as far as like farming, you know, unless you have a really cool personality, real cool brand, really something special, which are a few of, you know, like I could say probably the established breeders like Seed Junkie, you know, Chris from Compound's doing his thing.
Mike's doing well.
Yeah, Mike's doing well. I mean, there's a handful of guys that kind of came in right now, and they might be like
Bodie does great. Carnado does phenomenal.
Canorado, Bodie. I mean, but they've been doing it for a long time, right? So that they're gonna
OGs.
Yeah, OGs. You know, and then there are guys that are like punk rock about it, like Masonic.
Masonic's doing
Masonic's
fucking
crushing
great,
it, but
dude.
Masonic's feeding like that home grow market, right? Like he really,
Heady.
Yep.
Heady relates to him, fans.
Yeah, but
kinda
he's
thing.
always in front of people. He did the
But I
store.
feel like he does have something too with this hash thing.
Yeah,
like
well,
it
he got
seems
on
like
that.
seems like his strains
They make great
do
hash.
really good for hash.
But he got into that early and figured out a way of doing it low budget and took some hits along the way, but figured out how to turn those into wins. And, you know, but that there at some point things are going to evolve, but there isn't going to be a ton of space. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how much space there'll be, right?
I think the lane that Masonics created for himself will be there forever. Will be there for his whole life.
Oh, for him. But I'm talking about like, it's kind of like those things like we'll never have another Beatles.
And then you got these other
You know what I-
guys like Seed Junkie, who just does so many licensing deals.
Many licensing deals.
I'd love to see what his mailbox looks like every month, because he's got licensing deals with FloraCal, cultivators.
Yeah.
He's got licensing deals with out in Michigan where they're allowed to grow his genetics and he gets paid on the 8th bag. Like,
Well,
there's
those
all kinds of deals.
I think a lot of those deals are get really sticky, and I don't know how sustainable they are.
But they're guaranteed money for that breeder. It's not like you're waiting to see if something's working out.
This is where I think someone like him will go, because I think that some of my favorite cuts have come from his seed stock, right? That I love growing. And
From JBZ?
Yeah, for sure, 100%. Like, I got this cut of Georgia Pie that I just think it's a Cushman's cross, right? Like, there's so many Cushman's crosses that are so fucking good.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a number of things.
Cushman's is good in general.
Dude, Cushman's is so good. What happened? It's like that came and went, and
Cushman's did?
Well, no one wants it. Like, I never get a request for Cushman's, but it's so good.
But if you have it and like it's A1, it goes.
Yeah.
I grew this batch
I'm gonna show you some Cushman's I just grew.
that turned out unreal, and the whole thing turned purple.
Oh yeah. Oh, so you had the rabbit hippie cut.
Yeah, the whole thing was straight purple, and it was just like those bags were so fucking loud.
So good.
Those came from my mix light, and I sold
Yeah.
them for like 22. They looked identical to
Amazing.
indoor, dude. It
Amazing.
was incredible.
So I think someone like him, because I think the licensing deal thing is doesn't make sense, because these big companies because they're competing against the black market, they're gonna have to lower their 8th price. Like, we're already seeing that happen, where the 8th price is going. I think the licensing deals are great for the short term, and maybe you'll get a couple big checks, and then that MSO gets like some action because they have that engagement with that brand. But after like a year, people stop fucking caring. Like, it's not exciting anymore. It's
The
exciting.
strain?
No, just the alignment, right? So, like, let's say Cookies comes into a spot. I'll use Cookies as an example because they're probably the ones that created this deal the best, where they do this licensing, right? And then they're licensing from breeders, or they just stole the cut, one or the other. I don't know. That's debatable. I think that they're actually working more and more with breeders, and I'm seeing them trying to change that perception, which I'm 100% supportive for. Like, if Cookies starts doing like good things in an inclusive and doing this craft line that they're talking about, and they're actually trying to help build a healthy business, right? I'll fucking support that brand.
Right.
The only reason why I've been critical of them is because of the fuckery, and like when you see like one person winning off of 100 people's hard work, you're like, fuck that shit.
Right.
But if they start paying it forward and flipping it around, they could win a whole bunch of people back. And there's been a handful of people that have won, but it always kinds of feels like a little bit like a mafia, a little bit, So I'm like,
Yeah.
But they've created these licensing deals all around the country. Have definitely won, but they, Burner shows up in the bus and they do this whole thing, and it's exciting, and there's this whole line out the door. But I don't see that line out the door. I maybe I'm wrong. I could totally be wrong, but I see that happen for a period of time. And then it just becomes like, oh, this is the place that has the Cookies strains, right? And then you've got like some Chad looking dude that's going, here's the new Cookies drop. And it doesn't, like, people were like,
Right.
They get that initial hype, and then it kind of like falls off. So what I think is going to end up happening is that those partnerships will happen for a moment, and then those MSOs will try and quickly get out of the deal. So they have to stop paying for the royalty, right? And then whatever happens with that cut, they'll either this is what'll happen, right? They'll either rename it, right, keep it in the rotation, or they'll just not grow it anymore and have used the hype and the growth in the engagement with the consumer to be able to do their own thing and spin off their own brand and their own label, because it's not sustainable for someone to be paying a licensing fee all the time throughout the entire thing. Like, I think that
Right.
a sunset makes a little bit more sense. And I know people that are doing this licensing thing and winning it. And I'm always,
Sergio, I don't feel like Sergio and Cultivated are winning, having to pay Node on all that licensing.
No, it doesn't. Well, it doesn't pencil out. And then that's when the cuts get leaked. All right, this is what happens. It's like, we got this licensing deal. It's going to be great. And I've tried to create a few of these before with a couple THCV cuts. And I saw all the problems with it, right? Because this is number one. We don't have IP protection. We don't have plant IP protection. We don't. So, like, if you breed something, you can't put a patent on it. The only way that licensing fee thing really makes sense is if there's a patent on it. Second, things come in and out of style so quickly. Runts is like a fucking, really just kind of like a diamond in the rough as far as something that kind of like got taken by the culture and it's just kind of rocking. But most things, like if you look at cookies, they're constantly dropping new gear. You know, Sea Junkie's constantly dropping new gear. It's about constantly changing. Compound's doing the same thing. It's constantly changing, and they're really just like iterations of the past thing, just a little bit or whatever, you know. And there's a few breeders that are doing, like, I think Bodie probably is one of the ones that doesn't give a fuck about any of that. It takes, like, develops a landrace line with another landrace and brings it together and creates
biggest plants I've ever seen in my life.
And, you know, but he's doing his own thing, and he's like almost like
crazy names.
Yeah, he's kind of like the Ramones. You know what I mean? Like a little commercial success, not huge, but like everyone, like the pop culture loves him. But then like the fucking old school Grammy ass pop punk still wear his t-shirt. Like that's like the biggest fucking way to win ever.
Yeah.
Because you might not be a billionaire, but you are always going to have engagement. You're always going to have people wanting to support what you do, and you're going to have a great fucking life. You're not going to be the guy. You're not going to be the target, right? Like I think Sea Junkie, Burner.
He had this Goji OG is
Dude,
so,
it's so fire.
It's
so fire. I've grown it.
So,
it's so
fucking
it's
loud.
It's so good. It's so good.
What's the cross of that? Ian, can you look up Goji OG?
Goji OG. It's
see if it's on Leafly.
I think there is a landrace thing in that, if I remember. I should know this because I've grown it and I looked it up. But yeah, you know the. So it's just the Lance. The question is like I don't really know. I don't think anyone really knows.
Dude, I saw.
But what I do know is people really want to still smoke good weed. What is it? What does it say?
Goji OG, also known as OG Kush, and OG Goji is a sativa-dominant hybrid marijuana strain by Bodhi Seeds, crossed between Nepali,
a Nepalese landrace, yeah.
Nepali OG and Snow Lotus.
Nepali OG, yeah. So it's really good. And the Pine Sol was the Goji OG.
Wow.
Crossed with, oh man,
indoor or outdoor, very high yields.
Yeah.
Ian's dad.
Yeah. Grower?
16, 17 pound plants.
Really?
Like the size of the wall behind you, easily. Incredible.
So
fucking incredible. All Goji.
I met this guy.
Bodhi.
I met this guy in Rosa here, and through a buddy of mine, and my buddy called me and was like, "You gotta come see these plants." I got a picture of myself next to it. I'll show you after the show. But the city came by. He had like, you know, a 99 plant garden, and they came by and told me he can only grow 6 plants. So he turned the indoor garden into his veg, and he vegged these trees out and then planted them. They were 18, 19 feet tall.
Wow.
And it was like Girl Scout cookies.
So he was growing them since like
he would
January?
Yeah, he would start, no, he would take the cut in December, and then he would veg them from January all the way out, and then he would put them out right when he could. And I think when he was putting them out there, like he was starting them outdoors at like 12, 13, 14 feet tall.
Wow.
And so he had like this whole thing, and they were ginormous. And his average was like 35, 40 pounds a plant, something crazy like that.
What?
Dude, I will show you it. They were
35 pounds a plant.
I am telling you.
No, I don't know about that one.
All right, when you see it,
a little far stretched.
No. When you see it, they were the biggest cannabis plants I've ever seen in my entire fucking life. They were huge. They were maybe 15 feet wide, something like that.
That still produces
maybe
smaller pound load. Maybe his whole garden or something, but not one plant.
You don't think so?
No.
What do you think the most you can get off of one plant?
The record I've seen, I think, is like, and I wish I knew this guy's name. It was on Instagram, just like the most amazing things. But I think like the max, I think he's the champion, was like 21 or something.
21.
And that's an insane size plant, because I've grown big
What's the
plants.
biggest plant you've grown?
Gotten like 3 pounds off it, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna get 7. You know, and
maybe he was making it up.
big fucking plants.
All I know is I'd never seen that much weed on a plant. And he built like a whole scaffolding system to work around it and a whole thing.
Yeah, you can't work on these plants, you know.
Yeah. You can't.
Your cage is gone.
Yeah.
You know, your concrete cage. Or
I will show you this picture though. He did a pretty good job. But they looked like they were like the size of like a robust orange tree, like
Yeah.
a big ass fucking orange tree.
Yeah.
Is what it looked like. And there was
15 feet in diameter, 15 feet tall, like some big crazy
huge,
shit.
and it was Girl Scout cookies. I'll never forget that. I've never seen a Girl Scout cookie plant that big
Wow.
before.
Probably got paid on that too, because then in Girl Scout
Yeah.
cookies and everything.
And what was this, like 5 years ago? Yeah, for sure. And it looked decent, you know. I mean, I don't know. I'll find out. I'll ask him. He had all these gnarly dogs. Fucking go and hang out. He had like
In Sonoma County?
yeah. And he had like a whole pack of fucking pits, but like, you know, they all looked like they had mange.
Yeah.
And then like you didn't, you know, they'd be friendly with you, but you didn't know if they were gonna rip off your calf at the same time.
They're walking with you, but like really close,
Yeah,
sniffing your
that's the
hand at the
real
same time. And you're just like,
I'm like, oh yeah, that's right.
try not to be scared if he sniffs my fear and he bites me. And then the guy with you's like, dude, just don't act scared, whatever you do.
No,
And you're just like,
and you're looking at this thing, and I'm like, how do you not act scared? You know, it's like go to that happy place. But yeah, so I don't know, man. I don't know where it's gonna go. But
it's always very challenging forecasting the cannabis market.
well, because you're most
Where
likely
it's
gonna be
going because of the
wrong.
prices, and you try to think like, how does the price go up? Who determines that? Who determined that it just dropped all of a sudden when it did, when the bottom just fell out? Like so many determining factors that we just don't know, you know, because it's such a,
It's
hence the
gone up.
word
It's-
gray market.
And it's gone up in ways where I've been like, why is it so high right now all of a sudden?
Well, I feel like in the beginning with the COVID thing, not necessarily even that the COVID did that, but when the government was giving out all of those
That money.
I didn't even think about it, but who knows how much that money went to fake businesses or
Yeah.
shit that people created. And I heard like just, dude, the alcohol industry went fucking ham.
Alcohol and
Went
weed.
through the roof because people
Yep.
are just consuming like, that's crazy. I don't have a job right now. Let me just go fucking hit the 151,
Yeah.
you know? Wild.
Not great. Not great. Yeah, this whole fucking situation.
But it's like when a bubble
Yeah.
pops like that, does it ever kind of recover?
I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll see. Like, I was hanging out with these growers the other night, and all of them are into like crypto exchanges now, and they're like pancake swapping and this whole vernacular and all this stuff they're talking about. That like I've heard a little bit about. I've read enough. And and I've been like the fucking old fucking guy online, like, what is this? But like they're focusing, like they're telling me I'm never gonna go back into a garden. Like I'm making so much money doing this right now,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, how long is that gonna last though?
Hopefully they save it this time.
Yeah, right.
So I don't know too many growers who are able to like just save it all up, you know?
No, but I know growers that bought property.
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
the thing. Like, if you did this and you're able to buy some land or some property or a house, like that's a win.
Right.
That's a win. I've worked other jobs before too, but I mean, I'm always going to be growing. I'm always going to be
Exactly.
doing this. It doesn't matter like if there's money in it or not. That'll just change how I have a relationship with like how much other stuff I need to do.
Right.
And there's like Florida's blowing up. Like but that's the thing. Like I could go move to another state right now and get a killer job. No problem. I've had multiple
Right.
job offers, but my family doesn't want to move. I got family here. It's like, maybe that's, that might be an option though. Like, but then again, those
I wouldn't
markets,
say it might be, it is.
it is the option.
It's a big
Yeah.
option.
Yeah, it is a big option. So we'll see, So it's definitely an interesting time. It's definitely an
I
interesting
think we're going to
time.
be able to kind of know something in the next few months,
Yep.
the next, let's say by the end of April,
Yep.
we should be able to forecast what's going to happen.
Yep. Yeah, and
Because March, things start normally happening in March.
I will say this though, I have seen a bump up a little earlier right now on the white and the traditional market. So but this is the thing, you got to be above 27%, and both markets are asking for COAs.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Wow.
yes. So it's all moving towards what we're seeing on the East Coast, where people only buy it if it's like above 25%. So now they want to see 27% or higher COAs. They'd like a little color. But if you have a little color and you're above 27%, you're gonna do fine. And I think that's just the new standard, and I think we're just gonna be on that.
What if you don't have color, but you're over 30?
It'll still sell.
Got
Yeah,
it.
It'll still sell, 100%.
Got it.
Yeah, if you're over 30 and you don't have color, people will still buy it. Because a lot of the custies are just looking at that label.
Let's go grow some green weed that's over 30% and try to shift the market.
I got a bunch of cuts there. Yeah, for sure. 100%. That'd be good. And then I think the people that are going to change the consumer behaviors are like, when things calm down,
Yeah.
we'll start seeing some smaller brands come into play, and they'll start creating things that are going to be unique. People start growing Bodhi cuts,
Yep.
right? And then the conversation of cannabis. This is my prediction. We're going to be staying on this THC hype train for a little bit while the market's in disruption. That's the one thing. That's like the anchor for sales, is that, because everything else is too confusing. Once things kind of calm down a little bit and we start to see all these other markets stabilize, and it turns more into like Colorado.
Yeah.
Colorado's like actually an interesting market to like work in because they've been the most established, and you kind of know what you're going to get. And indoor goes for like $1,200, $1,300. Like decent indoor goes for $1,200, $1,300 all day long. You can move it. It's not a super oversaturated market from my understanding. All these things have kind of worked themselves out. There are some nuances and some things that are challenging there, but it's figured it out. So it's actually an interesting market to work in, right? If you think about it, because it's not boom and bust.
Right.
It's just like it's cruising. So once more things head towards like where Colorado's at, right? Then you're going to see a little bit more things stabilize, and then at that point there'll be time for innovation.
Right.
But until that point, there's not going to be a ton of room for that, except in like the super tight heady circles.
Right.
And then there's probably going to be some things that get popularized in the black market, and then once it hit the white market and they get tested,
Right.
people realize that this shit's fire and it's 15%. Number one, they're not going to buy it anymore, so that shit goes away, and then it'll end up coming back when that innovation is allowed to occur. So that's my prediction.
Let's pray to the grow gods that comes true.
I'm down for that.
I'll pray to that.
Me too. Yeah.
My brother,
Love you, dog.
thank you so much. You're
got it.
always just such a fucking vast information rabbit hole of just like everything happening and what's going on. And you definitely have your fingers on the pulse.
Thanks, man.
I appreciate you. Thanks for
Likewise.
coming through.
You got it.
Cut the check.
Cut the fucking check.